Hey RATBAGGERS, how you doing? It's Jade. Today going over some of the cut content from the very first version of Grounded 2020. Hopefully you've been seeing my Let's Play series where I return to the backyard instead of going into New Game Plus 2, showing you how Grounded used to be. Season 1 of that finished yesterday when I took on the Hedge Mother. Go and check that video out in the series. But as a little bonus, after each series I'm going to show some of the stuff that never made it or upcoming stuff and how it changed. This is the berry gloves. It was a concept that they had from the very first start, and it would obviously give you some sort of extra bonuses and buffs in basically beating up enemies. Of course, this ended up becoming just the unarmed build. We think or believe a lot of the perks from this and basically a lot of other stuff went into the mutation for unarmed, as well as obviously the special trinket that you can get. But it's pretty good to see it. I haven't played around with this in a while. I've done these types of videos before. You can go check them out if you want. I've seen and showcased a bunch of hidden and stuff. But what I thought I'll do after each season where we jump, if you don't know what I'm doing, I'm going back in time and revisiting every pretty much update that Grounded had. We're going to see if anything changed, what got cancelled, what got cut, and yeah, almost like a little bonus mini episode. So this is pretty good. We're just a ant there, that was pretty good. Let's take it off now and let's see what happens when I just punch normally. So yeah, you can see it's definitely doing a lot more damage. Now everyone knows, well you should know, that a rock is pretty good for stun, especially for ants. But that is definitely something to bear in mind. There was actually 2 of these gloves. That was the tier 2 one, you can see it does a lot more damage. And then there was a tier 1. So there's the model for it there, it just literally looks like an ant part. And there we go, I've got the ant boxing glove. So it does quite a bit less damage and less stun. So you definitely wanted to get hold of the berry ones if you could. Let's see if I can find something to go around and punch. So yeah, unarmed wasn't really a thing that got added for a good while. Not until the mutations. Then it became something a little bit more viable. And then when they finally added the actual trinket that gives you a lot more damage and stuff, that's when it really became like something people would try and do. I've never been a fan of unarmed builds in just any game, to be honest. Not just like Grounded, but any game. I like the idea that I've got weapons and new stuff and stuff like that, but just punching stuff has always felt a bit boring. But there we go, that is the boxing gloves. And of course, Mr. Bones, you can do this now in playground mode, so it's not such a big deal, but this was my most watched video. It still might be, no, maybe it's been overtaken now by trinkets. On my other channel, I started covering Grounded on Jade PG Survival, and did that for nearly 2 years, and then switched over to here to start covering it because I was sick of people basically not watching it because I was covering too many games. But yeah, you could play as this character. You can see it's actually moving and stuff. I've totally forgotten how to do this. There was a method where you had to die and do something and then reload or add it in, or maybe it was just a case of changing it. But yeah, oh, he's got health as well. I did not know this. I've got to get a picture, right? So this was the leaf blower. In fact, let's get a chest down. Now this would crash sometimes if you tried using it, but never really worked out what it was meant to really do, because it says it can do a little bit, a tiny bit of damage. So I think this was meant to help you potentially get away, like maybe utilize while you're gliding. I could try testing it out, but I might not be able to get as much height. Yeah, look at that. So, can you, or could you always do that? And I just never realised. No, you could always. No, it's different at motion. Okay, that's pretty interesting. So yeah, we thought it was meant to be something like that. Maybe you could push your friends. It does, like I said, do the tiniest bit of damage on a bug, but yeah, but quite from distance away. There are so many kind of resources that ended up getting cut or changed dramatically. Things like eelgrass and especially the lily pad wax, that changed massively from being big balls to stuff. So I'm not going to show everything because I think some of that stuff is just explanatory and kind of boring. But this was always pretty cool, cattail fluff. So at one point when they added the pond and the reeds with the cattails, we were meant to maybe go and try and gather some or harvest some, by looks of things at least. Anyway, unless this was meant to be just purely for design so they could kind of paint it on to the cattails. That's something you can do with spears and orbs in the engine and stuff. But yeah, it was always interesting. This could have maybe been what we used to stuff a lot of creatures with instead of just the actual fuzzies. But that was a massive cattail fluff ball. Can I push it this way? We've got to get that. We've got to get the right picture in, right? The clickbait picture that everyone's going to hopefully watch. And yeah, you picked it up and it was literally just a resource. Warm and insulating. So we figured maybe it was going to be used to go ahead and make either like walls as well or carpets. So at each stage of Grounded's development, well, a lot of stages of its development, they would start adding in more and more, obviously, concept items. So back in the day, again, I was the first person to show everyone a lot of stuff like crossbows were being added to the game, because I managed to find the cheat codes for it. We got teasers about black ants being added. I showed off all the black ant armor as well, way before anyone else. And the koi ponds. I was the first person to show that off completely, as they put it on a test build, as well as things like leeches. So the cattail fluff, it says it's analysable, but we can't go ahead and analyse it. Okay, fine, fair enough. So they already started thinking about the water. A lot of the water assets and part of the game got made by Black Shamrock, a studio from Ireland. And yeah, they pretty much did a lot of the koi pond stuff. I'm not too sure exactly how much, because game studios tend to be a little bit secretive. They don't necessarily always like acknowledging that their tiny teams have actually had outside help to make stuff, and that's not just like an attack on Grounded or anything. Lots of studios are like that. They've definitely recognised Black Shamrock, they're in the credits and stuff, but you never hear exactly what they did or didn't do. I found this out by just, again, scouring and going over ArtStation and finding people that had done a lot of the assets for the pond, and it was all attributed, a lot of it was attributed to Black Shamrock. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So yeah, things like the tadpole slime, that's why we had updates relatively quick in the early days of Grounded, because they were pretty much ready to go. That is technically called pooped, and instead it is just a web of fibre. So these are the classic thing that we all thought would eventually come and arrive, and it never did. The strider skates. So they were meant to literally make you walk across water, but they never added any functionality for it. They never worked. They never sped you up or anything. They were just kind of, yeah, useless. And the water striders obviously never got added either, which is a shame. Them and the leeches ended up would get cancelled. We will cover that in a future update. I'll show them off actually properly. That'll be at the end of season 2 of Going Back to the Yard, because that will be the koi pond proper. So I'll show a lot more of the koi pond stuff that got cut. But yeah, it was already getting prepped. We already had the breather and stuff like that. And I think you could access the dev world that had a lot of the pond stuff in it. At one point they were obviously toying with having a different type of torch as well. The firefly lantern. So it would be a torch that you would refill with firefly goo. And basically it would last a lot longer, I'm guessing. You wouldn't have to craft it as much. And I can see why they got rid of that. Why bother doing that when you could eventually just make one out of the torch, the charcoal? It seems a bit of a faff. Although it would have made much better use of the fireflies. They are kind of useless. Like, you make the helmet out of them, but what else do you use them for? And then we've got the feature that eventually would become the peeper. These are binoculars, a leaf spotting scope. So again, it's like, why bother with this when you can go ahead and just make it a feature that you'd be able to spot creatures using your hands. Couldn't actually utilise it anyway. There was no way to really use it. Just description says see things in distance more clearly through the power of water. But I don't think it actually did anything when using the water. It never made much difference in the view. Like I said, I'm going to show off a lot of the pond stuff, but obviously with the pond came the harpoon gun that we never did get. I think maybe it was stretching the realms of like, well, if we put a harpoon gun in there, do people realise it's just a pressurised kind of bow? Are people going to be now saying they want an AK-47? I don't know. I could only assume that's what it was, or maybe they just wanted it to feel a bit more dangerous in the water by having the diving bell spiders come and attack you face to face. But yeah, the model for it was kind of weird. Max is about to like end his life. And there was a tactical one as well. So literally it had a torch on the end of it. And don't worry, I'm going to show it off. I'm going to show that you can fire them. So there were harpoon bolts as well as harpoon bone bolts. You just choose what ammo you wanted, just like normal. and then you could try firing at something. Now these just would go on forever in the water. I'm not too sure they're going to work that well if I try shooting it out the water. My drops are not going into that thing probably. Just like that, but you can pick it up. Whoa, okay, so that was pretty good damage there. There we go. So it kind of worked. Yeah, not too sure why they never bothered with that. It sounds still like a cool idea, but I guess there weren't that many, maybe not enough dangers. Once they cut the leeches out, which were dangerous, what's the point in having this too? There was a poison version as well, a venom one. Got the old gum sword. This is where we thought, yep, gum's coming into the game. Ta-da! And it was called the Dragonfly Slayer. And yes, I did do a bunch of videos proclaiming that eventually we'd fight a dragonfly boss. And I don't know why there was a rumour or there was some sort of, someone tried saying there was a leak that there was a dragonfly boss fight. But that obviously never happened. We ended up getting the moths instead. But it was still pretty interesting. Could you cut stuff with this one like you can with the daggers? Nope. But this bad boy does like ultimate damage stun. It's basically a dev sword. You can kill anything with it in pretty much one hit. Test that out. Of course, I'm going to go and find a wolf spider. Now I'm being nervous because a lot of this stuff does end up crashing the game at some point. Something's going to go wrong. I must have killed them all because I'm a pro. Let's try you. Let's get my stamina up. Oh, perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Ready? Okay, so not instant kill, but might as well be. Now, I don't really want to make this into a video where I'm doing absolutely everything that ever never got made it, because I kind of have done these videos before. So go and look up like cut content in Grounded. But this was, I think, a pretty cool one. This was meant to be a plasma orb, and it was meant to be a trap. At some point, we think they were going to have electricity in the game because they had powered buildings. We thought that maybe insects and bugs and stuff would need to power them. I still think that's a great idea. Imagine your little aphid or weevil just running around hamster wheels to generate power. But this never ended up going up. This was the first stage of it anyway. There is a chance I will be able to do something with this, because I think in the next update you actually get to see some of the effects of it. It comes out in a big dome. Like I said, I've done a video taking a look at some of this before. Oh, hello. He's going for Bones. Leave Bones alone, you big bully. Oh, he's killed Bones. He's killed him. Oh my god, he's killing me. Oof. No, poor Boney. He's dead. Boney's dead. That's it, his skeleton might just stay there forever now. Now this was really cool. We thought that we maybe was going to get a proper scuba mask. But it ended up just being basically, I think they coined this into the tier 2 or tier 3 scuba gear. Effectively, we had all the koi pond gear and armour and weapons before the koi pond actually hit. And you can see that it doesn't actually show on the actual character. But it does work. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, there wasn't anything to the pond, just a few rocks and stuff. They hadn't made or they had the space for the mouth below, like the cave, the caverns below it. They hadn't really done anything with it. The lab wasn't there or anything. You can glitch through the floor. You won't see any of that stuff anyway. So yeah, the pond was really just useless. There was literally nothing in here of any kind of use. Now, the reason I'm also showing this stuff off right like now is because a lot of this stuff, even if you're using the cheat software at the moment, the modded software to go ahead and spawn this stuff in, a lot of these codes don't work. At one point they changed the name of a lot of the codes, the items, they got rid of a lot of this stuff. So yeah, it wouldn't work, you wouldn't be able to spawn a lot of it in once we go into later versions. I guess the last one that's not really related to the koi ponds, but I found at the same time, was Boomerang. At one point they were debating about boomerangs. Obviously it had just the shape and the look of just a dagger, but yeah, not functional yet. Maybe if I throw it. Yeah, you saw it kind of come back to me there, but it didn't go back into your hand. There you go. So you'd have to equip it every time for it to actually work. It's kind of cool. Back in the day, the koi did give you actual breathing. It was always kind of odd why they changed it. Especially being that, you know, it makes sense. It's an armor that you get from going into the water. Why wouldn't it give you some sort of breathing? But I think they felt like a lot of other stuff was giving it. You could get it from the smoothies, the basic kind of breathing apparatus. They already had the other diving helmet as well in this. So maybe it just felt a bit of overkill. And if they had this as the buff or bonus, then what else could they have added on top of it? How do you make this armor set useful for the rest of the game? But yeah, it was kind of cool back in the day. And yeah, for whatever reason, gum was considered steel, and you'd be able to make the dragonfly slayer with it once you found a piece of that steel gum. So you could also use a cheat that unlocked all of the various different tech trees. So we've got the anthill tech tree, we've got the grasslands one. So the grasslands one's the one that you pick up from Burgle. And then we knew that the hedge would get one eventually, as well as the haze laboratory. And the flower bed chip, that got changed, that got removed. But that ended up being, would become Schmector. And then mysterious chip unlocks, I'm guessing they were just some extra ones that eventually became auxiliary chips. But if we go and talk to Burgle, we should be able to see in the shop what some of them actually had selling. Yo, Bergs. So that's all normal stuff. Eye patch upgrade, canteen upgrade, berry bundle. So that's, I'm guessing, how we was meant to make berry leather. At one point they was going to have it as something we'd have to buy before making it. That's pretty interesting. Faults. It does say scab scanners too. I'm guessing that's like more build pieces that are going to have added to the game. A third upgrade for the canteen. Lots of invalid stuff. Tools, tier 2 axe and hammer. So yeah, we don't know. Maybe this was always going to be that if you wanted to, you could just buy tools from Burgle. Or before even crafting them, you'd need some of this. Simple traps. That's very soon in one of the chips. Stuff Friends 1. So lots of stuff here. Now I'm pretty sure not much will change here. You can see some of the mounts. This is how we always knew that other creatures might come into the game, because they ended up being like a stuff version shown off. We've only got 2 traps. Few more resources, but I've got to be careful, because anytime you would go all the way to the bottom of this, that's when the game would absolutely basically crash. So we knew bees were coming into it. This is why we were convinced as well that things like the dragonfly slayer would be made, because they already had like the ingredients getting used for it and stuff. Now it should be a cheat for unlocking all recipes. So by doing the unlock all recipes, you can now see we've got a bunch more stuff being shown off. So the anthead totem. And then all the stuff creatures, again, got to be careful because this would crash. And you see a lot more of the traps. Lure trap, obviously we've got that. The catapult, that never was. I've shown that off a bunch of times in the past. The slingshot turret, obviously that would become the turrets we know today. The plasma orb, as I said, that was something that we just never got. The honey trap, I kind of wish we did end up having these. You could argue that some of the effects ended up being this. So like fresh on your weapons where it slows down creatures and stuff. These were actually really cool. I'll link the video that shows off a lot more of these traps below. And tripwire bombs were actually something you could make and eventually get for ages. And then they removed them because they were useless. Pollen accumulator, just somewhere to store your pollen, I think. The grinder, that would crash the game anytime you tried spawning it in. Like you get it for like 3 seconds and then it would crash. And then obviously that would end up being the grinder that we know today. But it looked very different, very mechanical, very like made, not really made by us. And then base building, no real big surprises, just showing off more of the stuff. Boatman fin soup, again, remember no boatman for ages. The stinger spear, that would be arriving soon. The berry skin wraps. We did have the mosquito needle, that's right. It was actually a just blank silver sword. You can see all the other stuff that are pretty much shown off. I might try spawning that mosquito needle. And armor wise, no other big changes really. That was just pretty much it. It was the koi stuff looking a bit different from what it looks like today. The firefly headlamp, actually, you know what? That did look very different. I'll spawn that in a second. The diving mask we all know. And tools, the sticky bomb, the ant confuser bomb. This is why we were convinced that ant queens would come in, because the pheromone had been in the game from day one. So we always assumed that this would be a good way to maybe get through the anthill without killing them all. You could argue that ended up being changed into like the ant treat. And yeah, same stuff still showing off. But again, nothing brand new or amazing. If you did go ahead and buy these, it wouldn't really make anything else pop up. All the recipes are pretty much part of what we just seen. And then we had the research all items, and this is how we knew stuff would come eventually as well. There was a bunch of stuff here. Again though, sometimes it would crash the game as it pretty much went through the whole list of items. What this should do though is it should open up what exactly we would use cattail for. So originally, yeah, the koi stuff was going to be made out of the cattail fluff. So the firefly headlamp, it definitely was very different. I kind of like the way it used to look more. And there we go folks, that's the end of part 1 of this little mini series. It is just an extra for players and people that are maybe watching my Let's Play, or PlayStation players that are curious. In the next one, which will be at the end of season 2 of my basically time travel series, we will take a look at the pond stuff. I'm going to show off things like leeches and the water striders and a few other things that were added as that, and that'll be at the end, again just like a bonus episode. So that'll probably be in a few weeks. Hopefully this has been interesting. If it has, let me know. What more do you want to see from the archives of what not got added to Grounded? And I'll see you RATBAGGERS soon.